in this week's Bizline, green growth, a top priority, leads the way towards sustainable development. And later on, Vietnam's effort to attract green investment. Hello there, you're tuning into Bizline on VTV International. I'm Hoàng Hằng. The current global multi-crisis situation necessitates innovative growth models from all countries to overcome challenges. Green growth, a top priority, leads the way towards sustainable development. This approach, which balances economic prosperity and environmental sustainability, also provides an opportunity for Vietnam to fulfill its commitment to achieving net zero emission by 2050. Vietnam aims to increase the green economy's contribution to its GDP from $6.7 billion in 2020 to $300 billion by 2050. This ambitious goal requires significant and innovative action. Attracting green investment is identified as a key strategy for Vietnam to meet its net zero emission goal by 2050. Join us in this week's Bizline to learn more about Vietnam's efforts to attract green investment. But first, let's take a look at the following story.
This foreign corporation is working with Power Generation Joint Stock Corporation 3 to build a 300 megawatts flexible power plant using reciprocating internal combustion engines in Ninh Bình province to replace an old coal power plant. The plant will be able to use cleaner fuels, such as LNG, and potentially transition to carbon-free fuels like hydrogen. The progress Vietnam has made in its policy and mechanisms for green transition has partly helped the company in developing this project.
We provide flexible energy solution, including balancing engine power plant and energy storage system. Both of these technologies have been very well recognized in the recent PTP8, especially for engine power plants, starting with 300 MW by 2030 and increase significantly to 46,000 MW by 2050.
This company is also committed to investing in Vietnam for the long term, thanks to the country's potential, commitment, and actions in developing a green economy.
Putting Power Development Plan 8, getting it approved at the beginning of this year is a really good milestone. And it was nice to see that as they finalised the draft of Power Development Plan 8, the government actually built in the net zero target. We're here for many, many years and you won't see us going anywhere, and we are still expanding. We're the largest offshore wind developer in the country and we'll stay that way.
In addition to the Power Development Plan 8, Vietnam has taken significant steps towards green economy development and the overall green transition.
Prime Minister Chinh established the National Steering Committee, bringing together all of the national and local level and the sectoral level interests. Vietnam last year established its National Climate Change Strategy.
The Prime Minister announcing a resource mobilization plan to implement the political declaration on establishing the Just Energy Transition Partnership is a crucial step that opens a wider door for foreign investors in green sectors in Vietnam.
Le plan de mobilisation, c'est deux choses. C'est d'une part des moyens financiers que la communauté internationale s'engage à faire, que les conditions soient réunies pour que le Vietnam puisse attirer le secteur privé afin qu'il investisse.
Foreign investors expect that the current legal frameworks can be translated into reality more quickly with clearer investment guidance and incentives in green sectors.
Joining us today in our studio is Mr. Denzel Ees, Vice Chairman of the British Chamber of Commerce in Vietnam, or BritCham, and we are also connecting online with Mr. Evert Wieser, Vice Chairman of the Food, Agri and Aqua Business Sector Committee under the European Chamber of Commerce in Vietnam, or EuroCham. Well, thank you to our guests for joining us. Now, first of all, at the annual Vietnam Business Forum in 2024, Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính affirmed that Vietnam identifies green growth and digital transformation as two core issues two sides of one process that must always be valued. Along with that, the economic structure converting the growth model from brown to green. Vietnam does not accept the growth model that grow first and then clean up later. So what do you think about this message in Vietnam's green FDI attraction strategy?
Actually, this strategy aligns with the strategy of many of the companies investing into Vietnam. Many of the FDI investments which are being made into Vietnam at the moment are premised on the basis that they will be conducting themselves to the highest levels of sustainability and that they will be served by clean energy. So if we look at some of the key investors looking at Vietnam at the moment, for example, Google by 2030 have committed to achieving a carbon neutral energy supply across their operations and their value chain. So all of their operations and the energy that they consume will have to come from clean energy by 2030. So you can see by the strategies of some very, very major investments into Vietnam that it aligns with having a green growth and commitment to clean energy and sustainability with respect to their operations. So I think the two strategies are aligned and it will serve as a really strong basis to attract further foreign direct investment as countries look at.
And Mr. Vizo, what do you think about this?
We believe that this is also a very strong message to investors that please come to Vietnam. You can invest in a country which favors sustainable development first. And this also will help to prevent situations which have happened in other countries where perhaps factories that were not allowed to operate in their country because of environmental problems came to another country and made environmental problems there. By affirming this policy, the government can also attract high quality investment that contribute to the sustainable development of Vietnam.
The Green Growth Strategy establishes 4 objectives: reducing greenhouse gas emission, making economic sectors more sustainable, promoting a responsible consumption, and ensuring a green transition process. So what are your thoughts on these commitments?
Of course, all 4 commitments are equally important. This affirmation will also contribute to further development of Vietnamese regulatory framework, so that it will also be easier for companies to invest in clean technologies and also perhaps make the investment barrier less. Because now it still can happen that when you want to invest in clean technologies that you have to pay a little bit extra in the beginning, and that may sometimes create situations where companies don't want to invest. But by affirming these policies and also creating favorable conditions for the businesses, I'm sure that it will contribute to the sustainable development of Vietnam.
How important is foreign investment in Vietnam's transition to green growth?
Foreign direct investment into Vietnam in this sector is very positive and needed, particularly because it will be able to deliver additional capital in terms of equity and in terms of raising debt for that. It will also support technology transfer. Foreign investment is critical. But I think it probably needs to be partnering with domestic investment as well. So I think within the context of green investment in Vietnam, joint ventures between foreign direct investment and the private and public sector in Vietnam are a really good way of ensuring that the outcomes of strategy are achieved.
It used to be a race to attract investment at all costs between localities. Things have changed as provinces and cities have been cautious in selecting investors, giving priority to projects with advanced technology that promote green production by saving materials and energy. This paper packaging manufacturing enterprise has made the decision to invest in a factory located in Binh Duong province. The company has allocated more than $1 billion to implement environmentally friendly practices, in order to comply with the local requirements for a circular economy, recycling of scrap paper, and low carbon production.
Chúng tôi đã và đang nỗ lực chuyển đổi sản xuất xanh để sản phẩm của mình đáp ứng được các yêu cầu xanh hóa của thị trường và khách hàng.
Meanwhile, Ho Chi Minh City led the country in 2023 in attracting foreign direct investment, FDI, with over 12,400 projects. This included a significant number of green projects with substantial capital. A French energy and electronics technology enterprise has affirmed its commitment to expanding investment in Ho Chi Minh City. The city's focus on developing clean energy and products utilizing AI technology aligns with their investment strategy.
Chúng tôi chú trọng vào việc đẩy nhanh hơn nữa những cái giải pháp về phần mềm, những giải pháp về trí tuệ nhân tạo để giúp cho cái ngành năng lượng trở nên xanh hơn, thông minh hơn và bền vững hơn.
LNG energy is the top choice for green energy development. In a province with a high industrial proportion like Bà Rịa Vũng Tàu, replacing energy sources from gasoline, diesel, and even electricity with LNG will have a significant impact. Given the advantages of clean energy, the provincial leadership confidently proposes to supplement the development plan to make Bà Rịa Vũng Tàu a national energy center in the coming.
Thì con đường lựa chọn chính là phát triển kinh tế carbon thấp, kinh tế xanh và kinh tế tuần hoàn. Nghị quyết Đại hội Đảng lần thứ 13 cũng đã khẳng định cái vai trò nền kinh tế tuần hoàn cùng với lại nền kinh tế xanh, kinh tế carbon thấp thì hướng đến phát triển bền vững. Thu hút đầu tư có chọn lọc thì được tỉnh Bà Rịa Vũng Tàu xác định trong cái quy hoạch tỉnh Bà Rịa Vũng Tàu thời kỳ 2021-2030 và tầm nhìn đến năm 2050. Đây là cái định hướng quan trọng trong phát triển kinh tế xã hội của tỉnh.
New trends and changes in the global economy are putting pressure on the transformation of Vietnam's economy as a whole, especially its policy of attracting foreign investment. To avoid falling behind, localities are developing their own strategies to effectively attract green FDI.
Many people believe that green capital moves at a slower pace despite regulations. This is often attributed to unclear guidelines and rules for emissions control and the definition of green in specific contexts. What are your thoughts on this matter?
Sometimes when there is a certain green technology or a new project, it may be the first of its kind in Vietnam. And then you see that perhaps the government did not have a certain policies for the project to be established, or banks may be reluctant to finance the project, and that may slow down the development of the project. And we do hope that when these kind of situations occur, that we can have a dialogue with the government to explain the projects or the activity that we want to do, and then work together with the government on the policies. And then, of course, also together with other financial stakeholders to provide the financing for these projects.
A challenging issue in attracting green projects is that investors require favorable locations for factories. Investors want the factory to be close to the port and have a convenient traffic location, even though there are specific plans. How should this problem be resolved to harmonize investment attraction with existing planning?
Location is key for an investment in terms of the location is integrated into transport networks, and that they're able to, the factories or the projects which are developed are able to access supply chain, human capital, and the resources that are required. So having an interconnected area is a very important part of that. It's also important to have the policy which is supportive of those investments, and increasingly an energy supply which is going to support the requirements of those investors, and particularly having a clean energy supply. So one really effective way of sort of developing that investment area are green economic zones. And green economic zones can combine each of those elements. And we are seeing proposals with respect to that in Vietnam at the current moment in time. Some in the north of Vietnam are expected over the next few years. So I think that's a really positive area, and can also be marketed in a Vietnamese context to those international investors looking within a competitive landscape as to which country they see as best for their investment going forward.
Now, Vietnam needs to draw manufacturing industry from various sectors. It's challenging to simply avoid investment in polluting sectors, including industry and the high-tech sector. So what solution should be proposed to this issue?
So pollution is going to be a feature of industry and development going forward. It's not something that will be eradicated. It's more of a question of managing it. So the corporation and the private sector needs to have a responsibility to manage pollution and environmental impact responsibly. And equally, the government will then have to have a responsibility with respect to the regulation, the monitoring and the standards. So I think within this context, it's important to see both together, encouraging the private sector to adhere to the highest standards of sustainability and environmental impact, and in parallel, the development of regulations in Vietnam which the private sector needs to adhere to, complemented by robust and effective enforcement of that. So there's comprehensive reporting, there's comprehensive monitoring of environmental impact, and we're actually seeing examples of that in Vietnam at the current moment in time.
Recent global economic report have praised the improvement in the quality of FDI capital flows into Vietnam. These projects align with Vietnam's goal of green and sustainable growth. Recognizing the responsibility to reduce emission and contribute to global climate change mitigation, Vietnam is shifting towards a green economy. Not only the energy and industrial sector, but also the agriculture and construction sectors are gradually transforming their production models. This transformation aims to increase competitiveness in attracting high-quality green investment in line with the global trend of green growth and sustainable development.
In a recently published report, Vietnam ranks 28th globally in terms of the number of U.S. LEED certified green buildings. LEED is an international standard system that represents best-in-class building strategies for energy and environmental standards. Experts predict that this progress will catapult Vietnam into the top 10 leading countries within the next decade. This achievement reflects Vietnam's commitment to promoting green growth in the construction sector, which is known for its high environmental emissions.
There's over 250 in recent times. And there's more to come. There's current projects that are in process that will be green certified as well. So it's moving in the right direction. You know, we've got COP26 commitments, you know, for zero emissions by 2050. There's the decision 1658 in October 21 with the National Action Plan and the strategy for 2021 to 2030. Which is all very positive, and the government's shown a very strong commitment to it, and it's good to see we're working towards it. Look, sometimes you don't always achieve your targets, but it's good to have targets that you're working towards, and that's important to keep in mind, and it's good to see that the government doing that.
Vietnam, the biggest challenge, I think, with the weather patterns, both in north and south, is across ventilations, make sure we decrease our use of energy. That's I think one of the aspects. Another one, which is local development of the industry for local materials.
The green industry trend is shaping the industrial real estate sector in Vietnam. Investing in green buildings or properties with sustainable features is now standard practice in Vietnam, ensuring the value of real estate products. Many industrial parks in the country also highlight their green features to retain employees and attract foreign investors and experts.
Thanks to the big amount of investment from foreign developers coming to Vietnam and create healthy competitions in terms of building up a certain strong sustainable development. Green architecturals also being take high credit into Vietnam and also working closely with local developers as well.
Vietnam's green, sustainable growth in the agricultural sector presents a promising investment opportunity. This is largely due to the government's supportive policies and the rising demand for environmentally friendly products. Notably, the demand for organic food is projected to grow at a rate of 20% from 2022 to 2028. Given the increasing consumer demand and favorable investment conditions, Vietnam offers appealing opportunities for foreign investors interested in sustainable agriculture.
Well, more and more regulations are being made in Europe based on greener agriculture. The best example is the EUDR, the European Union Deforestation Regulation, that will ban any products in the European Union that come from deforested areas. And in order to be able to cope with that, Vietnamese entities, Vietnamese companies needs to be incentivized and needs to be helped by government-led schemes to move towards an even greener future for Vietnam.
Experts and businesses anticipate promising prospects for Vietnam's sustainable agricultural sector, given the government's strong commitment to promoting agriculture and the rising participation of the private sector in this field.
Vietnam has been an amazing story of development. Not only its economy, its management of finances generally, its management of people, it's dragging people out of poverty. I mean, it's improving productivity. It's been a wonderful economic and social story all around. So certainly policies that have come through the Vietnam government are focused on sustainability in not only agriculture, but all fields of manufacturing and development. And companies must have sustainability at the center of their strategic planning.
The European Chamber of Commerce in Vietnam confirms that green investment strategies are emerging in areas like renewable energy, infrastructure, and sustainable agriculture as Vietnam increasingly prioritizes sustainable development. This aligns with the global sustainability drive, presenting excellent opportunities for investors who participate in and benefit from green initiatives.
So how do you evaluate the potential in attracting green capital in Vietnam?
So the energy sector is probably, I think, the largest area where we'll see green finance and green funding flowing. However, the basis on which green finance is established is really the purpose of how the funding is used. And this goes back to the question of a green taxonomy. If we have clear definitions, it's more likely that greater levels of green finance can be advanced because there's greater clarity with respect to how that funding is being used. So where the purpose of the funding requirement in Vietnam can be determined as green, e.g. it has a sustainable outcome and a sustainable benefit, or it mitigates environmental impact, you can see many sectors being able to benefit from that. So the real estate sector, manufacturing, hospitality, where those sectors and the companies within them are able to demonstrate that they are using that funding for a green purpose, then there's no reason why there can be not the advancement of green funding into those sectors.
How should we properly understand green growth and attract green investment in a way that doesn't negatively impact the country's overall development?
The Prime Minister already did a very good job by affirming to the world that Vietnam takes sustainable development very seriously. And I think that's a very important message to the world, because there have also been cases of other countries where they did not have these kind of commitments, and then a lot of polluting factories and polluting industries came to the country, and then the country was stuck with that problem. But the one aspect where also can be looked at is, for example, more policies to incentivize green investment, for example, tax policies or other kind of financial policies, to make it easier for companies to invest in green technologies.
In the past 2 years, the number of foreign organizations providing green credit to Vietnam has increased 2.5 times compared to previous years, accounting for most of the more than $7 billion in international mobilized capital.
One of the first milestones has been and gone fantastically. In mid-May, we got Power Development Plan 8 delivered, which was a really good milestone to get past. We've got a framework in place. Now we need to take this into the implementation stage. I've worked in many markets myself, and CIP as a company works across the globe. The potential is massive.
The green economic development trend in Vietnam is only at the starting point. Capital sources and technologies are problems that many developing countries like Vietnam face when developing a green economy.
Working together with our big European companies like CIP, COP, like Vestas, like Equinor, all these big companies with experience, we should encourage them to come to Vietnam, to transfer technology, and Vietnam will benefit from advantageous financing.
I think certainly there's a lot more training that needs to be done, but it's a growing sector, absolutely. Policy initiative, and then that would also help foster a training mindset towards, green thinking and green practice, because ultimately it's Vietnamese enterprises really that are going to make the difference in this.
The European Union positions Vietnam as one of the most important partners in the region. It has provided grants of up to 210 million euros between 2021 and 2024 to advance common interests in many fields. Making good use of international cooperation in both the public and private sectors will facilitate Vietnam's journey in bolstering the green economy.
Now, green credit does not equate to offset credits. Now, funding green projects that use advanced technology can be expensive, and additionally, operations may cost more than traditional production methods. So, what do businesses need to do to gain access to capital?
So I think it's first of all necessary to identify the form of capital. Is that going to be equity, investing into the business, or is it going to be debt? In the form of lending from financial institutions. So that will really then be dependent upon the company's strategy. Does it seek to have an equity investment to grow the business further, or is it seeking to have debt for that purpose? And if it's equity, then it's a question of designing the strategy within that company to align with investors who want to support a more sustainable growth of that business. And you can see some of the largest lenders in Vietnam very committed to that. HSBC and Standard Chartered are very keen to deploy significant capital in Vietnam to support green growth and green businesses. And I think it will be a question of companies here working with their banks to establish the basis on which they can be the recipients of that funding.
How will promoting green and sustainable growth enhance Vietnam's position in the fight against climate change and maintain its role in the global supply chain?
So Vietnam at the moment is committed to the development of new renewable energy, and I think it's informed by different issues. Vietnam has recognized that that could have a material impact on different areas in Vietnam, and therefore has indicated and made a commitment to managing the factors which contribute most significantly to that, namely greenhouse gas emissions. The most ambitious companies in that sector, and the most ambitious companies are some of the most successful and the largest as well. Amazon, Google. These companies are setting the agenda globally, and they're also setting that agenda by identifying where they want to make their investments. So where we see an international context of companies committed to carbon neutral energy supply, it really does make sense for Vietnam to respond to that through policy and investment incentives which support.
What is your take on this?
You look at European consumers, they are looking more and more at companies. Where do they produce their goods, and are the goods produced in a clean and sustainable way? And so also in terms of, let's say, exports, Vietnamese green commitments really help to secure their investment destination star status, and will allow more factories to establish in Vietnam. But they know that the Vietnamese government has strict policies for attracting green investment, and that can also be shown to the customers in, for example, Europe. They know that the products made in Vietnam are sustainable produced products.
And once again, thank you to our guests for joining us today. The government is implementing measures to create a favorable environment for FDI enterprises and to encourage more green investment. This is achieved by refining the legal framework for green credit. A draft decision by the Prime Minister which outlines regulation on environmental criteria and the certification of green credit and green bond issuance projects is nearing completion. Once officially implemented, this draft will promote the issuance of green bonds and green credits, stimulating the growth of the green capital channel in 2023 and the years following. By enhancing its legal environment, Vietnam aims to become an appealing destination for international green capital. Financial institutions and businesses are striving to foster a circular economy and a green finance system that effectively garners green investment capital for sustainable development. And on that note, we wrap up this edition of BizLine. Stay with us for more content, or you can download our app VTV Go from App Store or Google Play for additional content. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time.
Right.